Good morning and welcome to the inaugural Governor's Officer of the Year ceremony. My name is Phil Riley with the South Carolina Department of Public Safety, and it is indeed my privilege to be here and kick things off this morning. And I can't think of a better place to be in South Carolina today than right here, right now. Honestly, we have the best of law enforcement in South Carolina in the room. Our 13 finalists. We have their chiefs, their sheriffs. We have other law enforcement leaders present in the room. And we are most fortunate to have the governor of what I'm sure we all agree is the greatest state in the nation with us today, the Honorable Henry McMaster, for his leadership in establishing the Governor's Officer of the Year program in our state in order to recognize the state's top cops. Let's give our great governor a big round of applause. And it is indeed a great day in South Carolina. We are minutes away from some of the finest food in the Midlands. You all who have been here before know that. And the rain has finally stopped. Amen, right? Mother Nature's good to us this morning. Before I introduce our Master of Ceremonies, I just want to say my congratulations in advance to the winners today. It wasn't easy to get here today. If you're one of the 13 finalists, and I can tell you, if you're in this program, you're already a winner. I can assure you that. Only 3 are going to get awards today, but if you're one of the 13 finalists, you are a winner. I promise you. Not an easy process to go through and make it here today. All right, it is now my honor and privilege to introduce our Master of Ceremonies today, Miss Dondi Mercer Plank, a familiar face to us all, I'm sure. And she knew from a young age that her love of creative writing, current events, and talking with others about their lives all combined to spark her interest in telling stories to a much larger audience. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in telecommunications from Ball State University in 1989, began her TV career in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's a little different up there, isn't it, the weather? A little different. Learning quickly that tall snow boots were the only way to tackle stories in the frozen tundra. So in 1992, she traded in her cross-country skis for water skis and flew south to become the morning anchor of WIS-TV. She was later promoted to the evening newscast, and after 4 years at WIS, she moved to Houston, Texas, spending time in news and Christian radio and hosting a horse and travel pilot show. She starred in commercials, print ads, and industrial films, and even had a role in a movie. But Dondi's heart was still with the people of South Carolina. So in January 2001, she returned to WIS, where she's been a staple in Columbia area homes every evening since. Y'all do a great job. You really do. And you do a great job, too. We're glad to have you on WIS and in Columbia. So please join me in welcoming our Master of Ceremonies, Miss Dondi Mercer Plank.
Thank you, Phil. Welcome, everyone, all of our law enforcement. Welcome, Governor, and welcome to the media, my friends, and to family members who are here. This is such an honor for me to be able to MC the Governor's Law Enforcement Officer of the Year Award. And I want you to know that I have a lot of blue and black in my closet, and I made sure to wear it today. And then I saw DNR, and I'm like, ugh, I could have worn green, too. I am so glad to be with all of you in law enforcement. I love all of you. I have the deepest respect for you, the greatest appreciation for our law enforcement. And a big reason is because I come from a family of law enforcement with 4 members of my family either having served or still wearing the badge today. So let me introduce to you, if I may, my favorite member of law enforcement. If you can see this picture, you might see the resemblance. And this is, cue the picture. It's not working. That's okay, Brent. It's all right. We'll get it. but it will be a picture when you see it, if I have to get up there and draw it, of Clark Mercer. That is my dad. And that is when he started his career with the Indiana State Police in 1961. And if you take a look at the next picture, hello, Mayberry. All of you think of that first car you get in law enforcement, that first squad car. Well, where's Sheriff Foster? Is this not Newberry? This was so Mayberry, but that was his first patrol car with the Indiana State Police. He was my Andy Griffith. And I grew up, as we look at this last picture, of knowing others to call him sergeant, lieutenant, captain when with the Indiana State Police, and chief when he led the department at the Greenfield City Police Department. But to me, he was simply dad. But with my dad and 3 other members in law enforcement, with one still wearing the badge today, I just have such a love for all of you. So when they asked me to be the MC of this, I was so thrilled. So glad to have the opportunity to be here with you today. Right now, what we'd like to do is bring up Reverend Eric Skidmore of the South Carolina Law Enforcement Assistance Program. He's going to open us up in prayer and ask God's blessing on our meal. And just bless that grease right out of the chicken, Eric. Come on up.
Let's pray together. Our gracious God, we read in the Old Testament that we are not to forget your teachings, but rather to keep your commandments all the days of our life, that our days may be long upon the earth. We're not to rely on not to let loyalty or faithfulness forsake us, but we're to bind them around our neck and write them on the tablet of our heart. We're to trust in you with our whole heart, not relying on our own insight, but in all of our ways, we're to acknowledge you. Not being wise in our own eyes, but always turning away from what is evil. May these words guide us and define our path as we seek to follow you. Gracious God, on this day we honor the Governor's Law Enforcement Officer of the Year. We honor all the officers recognized this day, their pursuit of excellence in the field of law enforcement in this state. We honor their pursuit of competence in their chosen field. We honor their co-workers who worked alongside of them in the cause of justice, and we honor their families for the sacrifices they make because of their officer's job. Father, bless the food we're about to eat and guide us in your service. We pray in thy name. Amen.
What I'd like to do right now is introduce to you Paul Butler. He is an internationally renowned speaker, presenter, instructor, and entertainer. He holds a bachelor's degree in communications along with an associate's degree in criminal justice. And during his 27-year law enforcement career, he served as a public servant, training officer, sergeant, crisis negotiator, chief of police, and chief deputy. He became the chief of the Ainer Police Department at the age of 22. I mean, you're still getting in trouble when you're 22. And he was the chief, making him the youngest police chief in the history of South Carolina. Now, he was born and raised on a small farm. His parents served as examples of hard work, common sense, personal responsibility, and respect for self and for others. And this, of course, has played heavily in his success in life and within each organization in which he has served. Paul is a graduate of the 220th session of the FBI National Academy and retired from law enforcement as the Chief Deputy of the Horry County Sheriff's Office. Please welcome to the stage, Paul Butler. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, how about a big round of applause for our MC, Miss Dondi Mercer. Thank Dondi and I worked together years ago, probably 20 years ago with Easterseal, South Carolina, and the Bucket Cup program, for those of you who remember that fundraiser. And when I saw her, we gave each other a hug and all, and I said, she's the only one in this relationship not getting any older. Isn't that amazing? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, it is an honor to be here. And when she gives that bio, I have a bio, a big, long bio, looks like my mom wrote it. And I always tell people, just take out a line or two you think they will find interesting. Without fail, they always mention that I was a police chief at 22. Youngest in the history of South Carolina. And that is true. What they never mention is it was a 3-person department. All right? But I always say if it were so easy to do, why didn't the other 2 people do it, right? I promise they didn't have less experience. Also, that is a record that'll never be broken. Never be broken in South Carolina, because the day they appointed me chief of police, they passed laws to keep that from ever happening again. Now have to have a minimum of 5 years experience, and I see why. I was way over my head in that role. But now that I've retired, what I do is I travel the world speaking, training, traveling, having a great time, carrying a simple South Carolina message across the globe that talks about how to treat people, how to lead, how to follow, how to be good partners. Ladies and gentlemen, we specialize in that. And no matter where I'm speaking, from Aner to Argentina, and from Argentina next month I'll be speaking in Africa, the message is always the same. They know South Carolina, they respect South Carolina, and most of them wish they had the leadership we have in South Carolina. All of them, that's exactly right. And every state would love to have our governor. Thank you for being here today, Governor. I appreciate that. Tone is always set at the top, ladies and gentlemen, and you're the best in the business for a reason. Now, in my travels, I every now and then get to meet some incredibly interesting people. I want you to know, just past week, I was speaking in New York City. One of the few times I've gotten to speak for the NYPD. And when I was going to be up there for 2 or 3 days, staying in New York City, I have to admit my family was a little worried. They were concerned that people weren't going to be nice to me. They were worried that they were going to be rude to me. As soon as I open my mouth, they're going to know that I'm not from New York. I want you to know I met some of the nicest people in the world right there in New York. They're everywhere. As I was walking down the street to go to my hotel, 50 short yards from where I had dinner to my hotel, not once but twice, I had women approach me and ask me, was I lonely and did I want some company for the night? I'm going to tell you, New York City's the friendliest place I've ever been in my life, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get that kind of welcome in South Carolina. Also, just last year, I was speaking in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Now, let me tell you this, no matter what you think you have going on as problems in your jurisdiction, you're not Atlantic City, New Jersey. They have trouble from top to bottom in Atlantic City, New Jersey. But I'm doing this conference there, and I'm one of those guys who's sitting in my room, and I'm always interested, do they have a Bible in the nightstand? Because I always figure that's where things go wrong sometimes. I reached over to the nightstand, I opened it up, and they did not have a Bible there, but they did have a card. They did have this little card that said, if you suspect you may be an alcoholic, call this number. Well, now, I'm not a drinker, but I like to thank people who do services like that, so I called that number. It was the liquor store down the street. 24-hour delivery. Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, while I was in Atlantic City, I'm speaking at this conference, and the other speaker that day is the Navy SEAL, Marcus Luttrell. Now, many of you may know who Marcus Luttrell is. He is the lone survivor. There was a movie about the lone survivor, a book written about the lone survivor, and Marcus Luttrell is the subject of that movie and that book. He is the lone survivor. For those of you who don't know Marcus Luttrell, he and his Navy SEAL team were dropped off on a mountain in Afghanistan in 2005. They had a mission to capture or kill an Al-Qaeda leader who was setting roadside bombs and terrorizing our men and women in uniform. 4 people on this Navy SEAL team. They immediately encounter a young man, a teenage boy, who is a goat herder in those mountains. They capture him, and they have to make a decision because they have the authority, they have the ability to kill him because he can compromise the mission. But he's just a young kid, and they make the decision not to kill that kid. Now, Marcus Luttrell owns that decision. He said that he talked the others into allowing that young man to live. That young man immediately reports them to the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. A force is assembled, and they believe that approximately 400 warriors stormed that mountain to kill those 4 Navy SEALs. 3 hours after they were dropped off on top of that mountain, 3 hours, everyone on that Navy SEAL team is dead, except for Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor. Now, he's been shot, he's wounded, he's bleeding, he's dehydrated, he's near passing out, and he's got to make a decision. He says he has to escape. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you're on top of a mountain, there aren't many avenues of escape. Now, I don't get on many mountains. I'm afraid of heights, all right? I don't even like being this tall, okay? But the next time you're on a mountain, I want you to look over and think about the courage it would take to do what Marcus Luttrell did next. He threw himself off of that mountain, jumped off of that mountain, not to take his life, but to save his life during the fall. His nose is crushed so flat on his face that he can no longer breathe through it. And it breaks his back. His back is broken. He's now laying at the bottom of this mountain, and he still has to escape because the Taliban and Al-Qaeda are coming down out of the mountain to recover his body. I got to meet Marcus Luttrell. I got to spend some time with him. And he's incredibly engaging. I want you to know these are the things I remember about Marcus Luttrell. First of all, he's a mountain of a man, bigger than anyone in this room. He's a mountain of a man. But he's also an East Texas boy, a simple East Texas boy raised on a farm just like many of us. Marcus Luttrell's just as country as a chicken coop, 100% a normal guy. And he was also very friendly, easy to talk to. He's laying at the bottom of that mountain and he survived. And I asked him, I said, Marcus, you have got to tell me, because I speak for a living to law enforcement groups, and some of them in that audience may find their lives on the line one day. I need you to tell me what you were thinking of that the Navy SEALs taught you that saved your life that day. Marcus Luttrell laughed. He said, I wasn't thinking of anything that the Navy SEALs taught me that day. He said, I was thinking of something my daddy used to say. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about how powerful your words are. As leaders, as parents, as friends, whenever you're out there, we are charged with one goal in leadership, and that is saying something that sticks in their minds. We believe that their training is going to take over in their darkest moments, and it will when they do not have time to think. But when they do have time to think, ladies and gentlemen, they're always going to think about someone who loves them. You've got to be that leader in their life. You've got to be the one that they think of that guides them through. Marcus Luttrell said, my daddy used to say, son, if you've got a problem and you can solve it, then it's not a problem. Go ahead, solve it. Now, if you've got a problem, son, and you can't solve it, then it's not your problem. Quit focusing on it and do what you can do. Marcus Luttrell said, I had a problem. I needed to escape, but my back was broken. He couldn't walk. He said, but I couldn't fix that. So I quit focusing on it, and I started thinking about what I can do. Marcus Luttrell said he could crawl. He began to crawl on his belly, using his elbows to pull him forward. He said he needed to get to a mountain range that was about 10 miles away, but he knew not to set his goal that far away. He said he was afraid he would get demoralized and give up. So he said he set his goal about 5 feet in front of him, about the distance of the table you're sitting at right now. He said that was his only goal, to climb that 5 feet. He said every time he climbed for those 5 feet, every time he crawled forward for 5 feet, he said I would stop and I would celebrate my accomplishment. Marcus Luttrell crawled on his belly for the next 7 miles. Now, ladies and gentlemen, most of us, if I told you that you had to crawl to the parking lot to save your life, most of us could do it. But if I told you you had to crawl to the State House, there's a chance most of us would give up before we ever started. Marcus Luttrell said we have to set our goals that are short enough and manageable enough that we can reach them quickly. And then, he said, the key is to celebrate those goals. How many times have you talked to a young officer, young deputy, and you ask them, what is it you want to do inside of this organization? And they say, I'd like to be the chief one day. I'd like to be the colonel one day. I'd like to be the sheriff. And you're thinking, whoa, Turbo, how about pump the brakes a little bit? How about we try to get you off FTO first, right? The danger of setting your goals too far away is if they can only be happy at being the chief or the colonel or the sheriff, then every promotion they get in between is going to be a disappointment. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have to teach our people is to celebrate the small accomplishments. Let them know that getting hired is something worth celebrating. Getting through the academy is something worth celebrating. Getting off of FTO, getting your first assignment, getting promoted to the dog team, the SWAT team, any team in the world is worthy of celebration. And if you teach people to celebrate the small moments, they might just crawl their way all the way to the top. But ladies and gentlemen, Marcus Luttrell's daddy gave the absolute best advice. For everyone in this room, you remember this. Whatever's going on in your life, at home, at your office, in your community, or in our state, if there's a problem going on and you can fix it, well, it's not a problem. Go ahead, fix it. But if there's a problem going on and you can't fix it, then that's not your problem. You quit focusing on that and start focusing on what you can do. Ladies and gentlemen, South Carolina is leading the nation in leadership, in partnership, and in friendship. Maybe the most important tool of leadership. We're friends, ladies and gentlemen, and friends won't let others give up. What I need you to do is realize that this moment that has brought you in this room is not just a small accomplishment. I'm going to need you to celebrate it. I'm going to need you to celebrate being selected to be among the best ever in South Carolina, to be recognized. No matter how these awards end up shaping up, I want you to remember this, that a lot of people could be in your same shape, but they set their goals so far away that they quit crawling a long time ago. Your job when you leave here, no matter what happens today with awards, is to remember that you have accomplished something amazing, something great, something fantastic, and something that will shape the future. All you have to do is turn around and look and see who else is crawling. Help them forward. Be a good partner. And you'll end up being the best friend they've ever had. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm thankful for this time together. I'm honored to be standing up here. And I am grateful we have a governor who recognizes, still is proud to stand with law enforcement. I'm going to a lot of states where that's not the case. And you can watch things fall apart. You can watch them fall apart from the top down, but not South Carolina, ladies and gentlemen. We have something to be proud of, not just our leadership, our people. When my girls ask me, Daddy, what's the most beautiful place you've ever seen? I say it's any place I step off that plane or out of that car in South Carolina. Thank y'all for making it that way. Good luck. God bless you. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul Butler. It's now a privilege to introduce to you the Director of the South Carolina Department of Public Safety, Robert G. Woods IV, a 34-year law enforcement veteran who served 2 years with the Charleston Police Department and 32 years with the South Carolina Highway Patrol and the South Carolina Department of Public Safety. During his time with the patrol, Director Woods was stationed as a trooper. Did you have a car like my dad's? Not quite that, yeah. He was a trooper in Spartanburg and Charleston counties, was assigned as a staff instructor to the Highway Patrol Training Unit, served as commander of the Highway Patrol's Emergency Traffic Management Unit, and oversaw the patrol's administrative support section as a major. He was appointed to serve as acting director of the South Carolina Department of Public Safety by Governor Henry McMaster on February 1st of 2020. He later was appointed and confirmed to serve as director, that being in March of 2021. It is a pleasure to introduce to you Director Rob Woods. Please welcome him to the podium. Director.
Thank you, Dondi. Just want to point out the excellent job that our staff has done in putting this program together. I can't tell you how much I appreciated Heather and Phil, but if you would please, in the future, never put me between Paul and the governor, because there's very little that I could add at this point of any consequence. But I do want to say this, is first of all, thank you to the finalists for your commitment to serving the state of South Carolina. It is truly, in fact, an honor for me to be here and share this time with you today. Next, I want to thank the governor for his support of law enforcement in this state and for taking on this initiative to recognize these officers through the governor's Law Enforcement Officer of the Year award. Thanks to Governor McMaster, thanks to his vision, we as a state can now recognize law enforcement officers who in the previous years demonstrated a distinct pattern of professionalism,
dedication to duty, community service, valor, and/or innovation in a manner that sets them apart. 3 of today's finalists, one from a city agency, one from a county agency, and one from a state agency, is going to be awarded $10,000 each. And this is all made possible through Governor McMaster's leadership. The Department of Public Safety was assigned the task of developing the process for selecting the Officer of the Year recipients. And let me just explain that process to you briefly. What did that look like? Well, the first step is assigning a selection committee. Most of our selection committee comes from the South Carolina Law Enforcement Officers Hall of Fame Advisory Committee. But we added 2 other members so that we could have a broader perspective on law enforcement statewide. At this time, if the members of the advisory committee would please stand and be recognized. The next step was offering each law enforcement agency in South Carolina an opportunity to submit nominees to their respective law enforcement associations. Those organizations, in turn, performed an initial review of the nominations and submitted the top finalists to the advisory committee for consideration. Finally, the committee carefully reviewed each finalist, selected the winners in the 3 categories that I just described, and those, of course, will be recognized today. The officers we are recognizing today represent the very best of our state has to offer, and all of these finalists are certainly worthy of being recognized as an Officer of the Year. In just a short while, you're going to hear more about each one of these nominees, each one of these finalists. But I want to say a sincere thank you to each of you for being here, for doing your job so well, and for helping bring the bar of excellence a little higher to everyone in this profession in South Carolina. This time, I'll turn the stage back over to Dondi. Thank you so much.
Director Rob Woods. So now a native of South Carolina, of Columbia, in fact, our governor, Henry McMaster, became our 117th governor of South Carolina on January 24th, 2017, following then Governor Nikki Haley's appointment as the United States Ambassador to the United Nations. He was elected to a full term as governor in November of 2018 and re-elected in 2022. Governor McMaster has led a strong and vibrant South Carolina economy, announcing more than 79,000 new jobs with more than $32 billion in new capital investment in the state. And under his leadership, the state has made transformative investments in the classroom by expanding full-day 4-year-old kindergarten, raising the teacher pay for K through 12, and placing school resource officers in our schools. Colleges and universities are becoming more accessible and more affordable due to the governor's tuition freeze and by his doubling of funding for needs-based financial aid for in-state students. Please give a warm welcome to the governor of our great state of South Carolina, Henry McMaster.
Thank you, Dondi. Thank you for that very kind introduction. Everybody here knows nobody does anything by themselves, but particularly whoever's in charge of the group. I got the best staff, the best cabinet in the whole world, full of ideas, initiative, energy, dedication, and of course we represent, as Paul already mentioned, the very finest people in the whole world, in the very finest place in the whole world. And I got some proof of that. One is Mark Clark. After World War II, he was a 4-star general, later president of the Citadel. He said there's more patriotism per square inch in South Carolina than any place in the world. More patriotism in South Carolina per square inch than any place in the world. Now that translates into loyalty, into dedication, into all the kind of things that make us just a little bit different from other places, the other great states, the other great people, great traditions. But those that have accumulated here since 1670, during which time our people from different places, according to Walter Edgar, we came from way back then, and for a lot of years, from 8 European countries, from 14 West African cultures, and it's somewhere between 25 and 41 Native American nations. In fact, not long ago, on the banks of the Savannah on our side in Jasper County, there was an archaeological dig, and they went down one layer after another, after another, after another, and they discovered stone tools that by karma dating or whatever it is that they do to date such things, discovered that they were put there, brought there 50,000 years ago. Now that is as old as any such things of that nature have been found anywhere in the world. And that just proves, Paul, people have been coming here for a long, long time. And they still are. Also, the chairman of BMW at their 25th anniversary, they've invested now over $12 billion in us. These companies, when they're looking for some place to go, they're looking at the people. They're investing in us. They don't bring all their people with them to do the work. They got 11,000 people working at BMW, which is their biggest plant in the whole world right now. Those people didn't come from Germany. Those are South Carolinians. The chairman of BMW said South Carolina is a handshake state. When the people of South Carolina, when someone in South Carolina gives you their hand and their word, that's better than a signed contract. And it's the truth. So yes, I am proud of South Carolina. I'm proud of what we've accomplished, and I'm proud of our people. And I am proud and thankful for those of our people who have determined and decided to go into law enforcement. A lot of us get up in the morning and put on a shirt and a tie looking in the mirror. People in this room get up in the morning and put on a bulletproof vest and go out to who knows what is going to happen. And then every now and then we see a tragedy that has a message in it to us, and that would be Mr. Frazier, who stopped the vehicle, went up and was shot in the face. The director tells me he's doing well now. He's ready to get back to work. And he had the presence of mind to explain what happened, give the details over the radio and to the deputy who arrived on the scene, while at the same time he was firing at the vehicle as it drove away. He's going to be back on the job. What an example. I'm so proud. I did spend a little time talking to the highway patrol when I was coming up, under various circumstances. It never was real pleasant, but I was always impressed with the way they looked and the way they acted, and I still am. And now that I've gotten to know more of them, I'm more and more impressed. Ladies and gentlemen, those that wear the badge, those that wear the uniform, law enforcement, military, that's the backbone of our strength. If we don't have that, then we're not going to have anything else. If we can't keep the people safe and secure in their homes and their businesses and their possessions, if they have to worry about their children when they're going to school, if they have to worry about all these things, they cannot function, and we will never reach our full potential. But we are sure reaching for it now. South Carolina, as Paul says, is known all over the world. People want to be here. Back when we were doing the pandemic, a lot of the states around the country, not here, issued a stay-at-home order. I thought it was unconstitutional. I know it's unconstitutional to shut down a business unless you can prove that they are a danger to the community. That's why we didn't do it. But I had people say, well, they have stay-at-home orders in these other states. Why don't you issue one here? I said, well, I don't think we need to do it. I think we're smarter than that. We got common sense. We know how to do this. He said, I'm not going to ask the people to stay at home. He said, no, we don't want you to have our people. Tell those people coming down here to stay at home. Let them stay where they are. We've got great promise. I want to thank you for being here. I want you to know that everyone in my administration, of which many of you are in or supported 100%, you name it, if it's, as long as it's ethical and it's legal, we'll get it if you need it to keep the people of this great state safe. There are a lot of things that I'd like to say. I don't have time, so I can't do all of it. But I do want to say that if you compare us with some other states, you will realize, if anybody does, which a lot are doing. That's why a lot of these businesses are looking at businesses which could go anywhere in the whole world are coming here. Scout Motors just recently, where there were 74 sites selected by the site selectors a place to go, and they chose South Carolina. And they also said that they were amazed. Usually it takes, when they're looking to build a plant someplace, it takes 2 months for the state authorities and the county authorities just to get going. 2 months, 60 days at least just to get started. We did this whole deal in 60 days. Why? Because we work together, we communicate, we collaborate, we cooperate, we know each other, we trust each other, and all that has been built into us over the generations. As I said, we came from those different places at different times under different conditions. Some came because they wanted to, some were brought and they didn't want to come. But we all were here. And during that time, since 1670, we have been, and the Spanish were here before that. And I think the French came, then the Spanish ran them off, then the English came, and anyway, here we are. And we have been through everything. We have been tested by wars. We have been in every war. And by the way, children, the Revolutionary War was won in South Carolina between the Battle of Cowpens, Battle of Kings Mountain, and then the Battle of Cowpens. That's when the Southern strategy failed. That's when they went back up and realized it was over. And in 1783, 10,000 British troops left Charleston Harbor on 130 British warships. And that was the end right there. So we got so much to be proud of, but we've been through everything. And that's why we don't let the little things bother us too much. And because we came from so many different places, under so many different circumstances, we've gotten to where we know each other and we get along. We don't fight and fuss about things that other people do. So we are different. And I think that difference makes an enormous difference. And I want to tell you, whatever we can do, we got a pay raise last year for the state officers. I understand it's trickled down to the county officers and others. I wish I had the authority to do the same there, but we're going to try to continue raising that pay for the state officers. Any kind of training, any kind of help, any kind of assistance, any kind of equipment, if it's available and we have the funds to do it, you just let us know and we'll get it. And there's some things, a couple of things I want to ask you to help us do. And that is dealing just quickly with these career criminals. Everybody in this room knows that we know who these people are. We see them over and over and over again. They go in and out, in and out, in and out. There's no reason for that to be happening. We have pending in the legislature right now 2 things that I want to call your attention to. One of them says that if you've been arrested and charged with a crime and you are out on bond, meaning you've guaranteed you're going to behave and you're not going to do this, that, and the other. If you have been arrested and you're charged and you're out on bond and you commit another crime and you get convicted of that other crime, whatever the penalty is for that other crime, I want to add 5 more years on top of that for being on bond, being on your good behavior and violating that. 5 more years. If we don't do that, I think that door, revolving door, is going to continue to turn. The other thing is, if you're convicted of a violent crime, as defined by law today, if you're convicted of someone, I'm saying you ain't gonna get convicted of a violent crime or any other. But if someone, these career criminals, they're convicted of what's described today as a violent crime, and they later get arrested with an illegal gun. Now, what's an illegal gun? An illegal gun is one that's been stolen, one that has no serial number on it, one that's in a school or a church or some other place, or in the hand of someone who has been convicted of a violent crime. If you fall into that category and you are arrested with a gun again under any circumstances, there ought to be a 5-year penalty for the first time, up to 5 years. Second time, here's the key. It's got to go up, because they're usually not going to get 5 years anyway. It's less, but it's got to go up for the second time they do, and then it's got to go up again for the third time. If we don't do that, I believe that we will continue to see these violent criminals on the street that are never going to stop unless we put a stop to. So I ask you to call your state senators, call your representatives. The House has passed this. The Senate is thinking about it. They're going to be going to conference. If you want to support that, I ask you to let it be known. But let me finish up with a couple of things that I think are mighty interesting and very apropos to what we're doing here today. And that is, it was mentioned that a lot of the young people, generations pass, and if we don't teach them what they need to know, then they won't know it. I'm surprised sometimes my favorite movies, oh, I think they're great movies, or a favorite book, and I ask some younger person about it, they don't know what I am talking about. And it's astounding to me that everybody hadn't seen The Godfather. But a lot of people don't even know what that is. Well, there have been polls surveys. You ain't gonna believe this. Everybody, you've heard of Michael Jackson. Well, they asked, there's a bunch